Final night of the Democratic National Convention now over, and we've got about 70 some odd days before the November election. Early voting begins September 26th here in Illinois. And interesting to see just how prominent of a role Illinois played in this entire process, especially for Democrats. Welcome in. It is Illinois in Focus Daily. I'm Greg Bishop on the road in Chicago. We'll be back to normal settings next week. But obviously a lot to unpack after the last 4 days here, especially after last night's with Vice President Kamala Harris accepting that nomination for the Democratic Party's presidency. So let's get into it because Illinois did play a pretty prominent role last night, and including several speakers taking the stage from the former Illinois Attorney General, a former Republican congressman, and a current Democratic congressman. Here is Raja Krishnamurthy from last night talking about the difference between what he says would be a Harris administration strong against China versus a Trump administration that is, he says, weak against China.
And mark my words, they want to see Donald Trump across the bargaining table, because he'll start endless trade wars that raise prices for Americans, because he'll cut programs that train workers in America. But most of all, Trump will pit American against American. And that's what China wants, for us to fight amongst ourselves, because that's how we lose. But we're not going back.
And that's really a catchphrase there that I think the Democratic Party is leaning into more and more. We are not going back. And that was chanted throughout the convention, all throughout this week. Of course, here with Illinois in Focus Daily, we've been looking at not just what's going on the convention stage, but also some of the conversations in the background. And we'll touch on a lot of that, but more from last night's stage presentations. We saw the list of speakers, and of course, Raja Krishnamurthy was on there. And then we also saw that Illinois Attorney General, former Illinois Attorney General Lisa Madigan, coming back to the political stage. Now, Lisa Madigan hasn't been in office since 2019. She is the daughter of former Illinois House Speaker Mike Madigan. And if you remember, back in 2019, she announced that she was not going to seek re-election, kind of a surprise at that time. But then months later, you had the ComEd 4 investigation and the Madigan Enterprise that the federal prosecutors revealed in 2020, and then the subsequent charges against her father, and those charges coming to fruition with a trial set for October, just before the November election. So it was interesting to see Lisa Madigan, again, the former Illinois Attorney General, on the stage last night, where she talked about Kamala Harris's role as the California Attorney General during the housing crisis.
She demanded big banks provide mortgage relief to allow families to stay in their homes. She stood her ground, and together, we prevailed. For as long as I have known her, Kamala Harris has always taken principled positions and never wavered. Thanks to Kamala's determination, countless Americans have a home they can call their own.
But Lisa Madigan, again, not the only Illinois voice. Somebody else who is rather prominent in the lineup for the final evening of the Democratic National Convention in Chicago was former Republican U.S. Congressman from Illinois, Adam Kinzinger. And he addressed the crowd, getting a lot of applause from Democrats. And he talked about how he essentially says the Republican Party is no longer conservative. And then he took time to blast Donald Trump.
Donald Trump is a weak man pretending to be strong. He is a small man pretending to be big. He's a faithless man pretending to be righteous. He's a perpetrator who can't stop playing the victim.
A lot of people either happy about the speech, others may call it projection. But clearly that was a pretty prominent role on the stage last night with Adam Kinzinger, who has, he was drawn out of his district, by the way, by Illinois Democrats. That's why he's no longer a congressman. But he was also on the January 6th committee selected by Nancy Pelosi, the former Speaker of the U.S. House, to investigate what happened on January 6th. So an interesting role that Adam Kinzinger has, I guess, grown into as a staunch critic of Donald Trump and Republicans, even though he claims that he is a Republican. Regardless, Illinois' role in the Democratic National Convention, pretty clear here, not just having been the host city for the DNC, but also the politics. And that's something when I sat down with State Representative Bob Morgan yesterday, and these are all things that you can see at America's Talking Network on YouTube. Be sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell and dig deeper into these interviews. But I chatted with State Representative Bob Morgan at the convention hall yesterday and touched on the prominence of Illinois in the national political conversation.
Illinois is one of the most diverse states in the country, and by that, it's people from all walks of life, people who really have different experiences, different types of jobs, really significant union presence, but also just really, really large urban corporate centers, and then rural parts of the state. And so really, what I love about Chicago and the rest of the state of Illinois being showcased is we can offer something for every single state in the country. When they're thinking about who they're going to vote for, Illinois and Chicago is really going to help showcase some of the issues the Democratic Party is fighting for, even if they're not in Illinois elected.
Now, a lot of Republicans in Illinois will be quick to point out that Illinois has got a whole host of problems, from outbound migration, second highest taxes in the nation when it comes to gas taxes and property taxes, high excise taxes in a city like Chicago. Trust me, I mean, you come up here and you see the price of gas versus what it is in central Illinois versus what it is down in Missouri or Kentucky. It's vastly different. So we'll see how that conversation plays out over the next 75 days as we get closer to the November 5th general election. Early voting starts September 26th. So a lot more to say about all of this, especially Illinois' role in it. It is Illinois in Focus Daily. Like, subscribe, hit that notification bell. I'm Greg Bishop. Follow me anywhere. Just search Bishop on Air. From immigration to the economy to Israel, we heard a little bit about what Vice President Kamala Harris wants to do if she is elected president, while you've got the Trump campaign blasting the vice president for not doing these things while she's currently in office. So let's get right on into it. Illinois in Focus Daily from Chicago, on the road all week for the Democratic National Convention in the Windy City. Be sure to like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and join us each and every weekday morning as we break down things happening in the land of Lincoln with Illinois in Focus Daily. Follow me anywhere. Just search Bishop on Air on X, Facebook, and beyond. But of course, get to thecentersquare.com, get the daily newsletter, get to America's Talking Network, and on YouTube, get all the videos that we bring you each and every weekday morning and all the news clips. A lot of content out of Chicago this week, including Kamala Harris on the stage talking about the border situation, which we've had a lot of criticism over the past 3.5 years because, well, it's been a porous border, except for the last few months or so, where the Biden administration seemed to issue executive orders clamping down a bit. But Harris took the stage last night to, number one, accept the nomination, but also in a 37-minute speech, laid out some of what she wants to do with certain policies. And of course, the border is a major issue. You've got millions of people coming across the border during the Biden-Harris administration, and the handling of it being criticized roundly, especially by Republicans in border communities. And it's impacting Illinois because we have 45,000 plus non-citizen migrants who've come to this state after border communities were inundated with millions of people coming across, claiming asylum. But, obviously you can claim asylum even if it's not a legitimate claim. And if you look at some of the statistics, those who claim asylum, 90% or so are rejected in a lot of cases. So just how legitimate those are. Regardless, it's a situation that's costing taxpayers billions of dollars. Here in the state of Illinois, it's been more than $1 billion, with hundreds of millions more expected in cost for healthcare, for housing, for food, for education, and even legal services. So Kamala Harris took the stage last night and laid out some of what her border policy is, but she also said that they haven't been able to do anything with the border because Donald Trump killed a bipartisan border deal, they said. Donald Trump's not president. He, of course, is a presidential candidate, but he's not president. But here's Kamala Harris talking about that very thing.
Last year, Joe and I brought together Democrats and conservative Republicans to write the strongest border bill in decades. The Border Patrol endorsed it. But Donald Trump believes a border deal would hurt his campaign. So he ordered his allies in Congress to kill the deal. Well, I refuse to play politics with our security, and here is my pledge to you. As president, I will bring back the bipartisan border security bill that he killed, and I will sign it into law. I know we can live up to our proud heritage as a nation of immigrants and reform our broken immigration system. We can create an earned pathway to citizenship and secure our border.
So again, Harris seeming to go back to this bipartisan deal she says was brought together last year. That would have been 2 years into the Biden-Harris administration with a porous border where millions of people have come across in unknown numbers of so-called gotaways that have not been at least approached by federal law enforcement and immigration officials. But earlier on in the day, I asked Illinois Comptroller Susana Mendoza during the Illinois delegation's breakfast about the border situation and how that's going to be handled under a Harris administration.
You know why? Because when the Republicans went ahead and did Donald Trump's bidding of killing that border bill, right, the border management bill, Joe Biden took action. And he said, fine, we're supposed to respect the process. They're always saying we have to respect the process. The president doesn't have the power to do it. And then when they disrespected the process by doing Donald Trump's bidding and killing that border protection bill, then Joe Biden took them up on their offer that he had the power to do it, so he did it. And as a result of that, we've seen a dramatic influx of migrants coming in. So short of them going to knock on doors and find migrants and then bust them over here, their threat, fell on deaf ears here.
And that threat was something that Texas Governor Greg Abbott had said at last month's Republican National Convention. We didn't see that materialize. We didn't see the potentially thousands of non-citizen migrants being bused to Chicago during the DNC. So ultimately, the question there I had asked was, we didn't see those headlines. What happened here? But I asked her also to respond to those who are frustrated about people who are here already as non-citizen migrants getting taxpayer subsidies, and minority communities in Chicago and elsewhere upset that they feel their communities and their children and their schools and their education and their resources are being given to non-citizen migrants.
Yeah, I would say vote Democrat. Vote Democrat, because we're taking care of business. I mean, it wasn't the Republicans who delivered the less influx of migrants coming in. That was Joe Biden. And if we win control, here's the thing, too, that I've said this many times as controller. I'm not happy about spending a ton of money on a migrant issue that I believe is a responsibility of the federal government to pay for. Right? So if they're going to allow people into this country, which we welcome that and they welcome them, then help the states that they're sending them to be able to afford that care. We want to provide responsible, really conscientious, humane care to our immigrants or refugees that are coming in. But it's also unfair to just saddle the states with those debts. The reason why they can't just give immediate permits to everybody, which is the obvious thing to do here, if you're going to allow them to come in, you process them, you give them a worker's permit and let them earn and provide money to the tax base instead of taking from it. The reason we can't do that is because it has to be passed congressionally. This is why we have to elect Democrats, because we know what the solution is. We just need the power in both chambers and the presidency to get it done. So you want to fix this issue? Vote Democrat.
Well, it sounds, though, as if the Democrats, including something that Harris said on the stage last night, an amnesty for those who are here, some kind of, quote, pathway towards citizenship. While on the opposite side, you've got Donald Trump promising to do mass deportation. I connected with Democratic State Representative Marcus Evans earlier in the day yesterday and asked him about the ongoing crisis and how he hears his constituents reacting to the non-citizen migrants in his city.
Yeah, I think when you say frustration, I think it's a lack of understanding of what's going on. I mean, let's go back in history. You know, we had something called the black migration, correct? You go before that, we had our ethnic or brothers and sisters, you know, particularly Italian, particularly Irish. So getting an influx of new folks is not a new thing in America. I don't know what's going on with folks, but I think that we have to have a good way in government to manage that. The issue is when the costs exceed the care. Okay, so we have to take care of people who need a plan. So I think the city of Chicago has to continue to refine their plan, and I think the state government, federal government has to support these cities. People are coming. You know they're coming. So unless we're going to have a policy of mass deportation, which we're not doing, I think, though, everybody here should be focused on one thing, is immigration reform. We have to have a better way of taking folks from outside of our country and matriculating them into the United States or not. But we have to have a clear plan. I think right now, with the border jumpings and the misunderstandings, it creates what? Confusion.
Now, I didn't just talk to Illinois officials. I also had an opportunity to talk with several from Arizona. One in particular was Alma Hernandez, a state rep in Arizona. We talked about, how Illinois is not a border state, but we're being impacted by the border. How should this situation be handled from the perspective of a border state like
Illinois
Arizona?
Is not a border state, but we've been on the receiving side of 45,000 plus non-citizen migrants. Arizona being a border state, how's that impacting the race? How's that impacting the politics?
You know, I think I was born and raised in Arizona. My mother's from Mexico, and I grew up on the border going between state lines. For us, it's, you know, the issue is not so much about who or who is documented and who's not in our community, because our immigrant community contributes a lot to our economy in Arizona, not only in Arizona but around the country. Whether it's they do pay taxes, because there's a misconception that those who are not here documented or what would be undocumented are not contributing to society or to our taxes, and they are.
So that's obviously some of the Democratic perspective. You've got the Republican perspective with, again, Donald Trump. He says he wants mass deportation. If he gets into office, he'll make that happen, focusing on violent, criminal, illegal aliens, and then going down from there. But you've also got the concern of just the overall taxpayer cost. I talked with Leslie Collazo. She's a Republican running for the state house in the Chicago area. Earlier this week, we chatted, and she said that she's hearing from constituents nothing but frustration.
They feel betrayed because they feel that a lot of the resources that could have come to them as American citizens are now being allocated to kids and families that have crossed at the southern border and were sent here to our sanctuary city and given access and seats to schools. So they feel really betrayed by that, and they're speaking up and they're super frustrated. So those are the conversations that I'm having with people in my district. And I think all of us get taxes taken out of our checks. None of us feel like we have a say in how those tax dollars are being spent. Some of us don't agree with how they're being spent. So my focus is finding the common ground. I'm not on the extreme right, and I walked away from the Democratic Party in 2020 because it was a little too far to the left. So I'm here with all the middle ground folks going, we've got to make some changes here.
And again, Leslie Collazo, a Republican running for the Illinois State House outside of the DNC earlier this week. But some of the other issues that Kamala Harris did touch on, I'm not sure if we got a deep dive into it on the stage from last night, only 37 minutes long for a speech, but she did touch on the economy and hinted at some of the things that she wants to do. Here's some of what she had to say.
That's why we will create what I call an opportunity economy where everyone has the chance to compete and a chance to succeed. Whether you live in a rural area, small town, or big city. And as president, I will bring together labor and workers and small business owners and entrepreneurs and American companies to create jobs, to grow our economy, and to lower the cost of everyday needs like health care and housing and groceries. We will provide access to capital for small business owners and entrepreneurs and founders. And we will end America's housing shortage and protect Social Security and Medicare.
So you've already seen some of the criticism of Harris, and she's in office right now. She's the vice president, and Donald Trump has been quick to say, why can't you do this now? Day one was 3.5 years ago for the Biden-Harris administration. So I think you'll hear that criticism sustained. But in the conversation I had with State Representative Marcus Evans, he also talked about the economic issues that we haven't really heard a lot of incredible detail about. But here are some of his thoughts, especially coming from the perspective of a state representative here in Illinois.
We've heard a lot about some really key issues, reproductive rights, abortion. Haven't heard too much about the economic issues. What are you hearing from constituents? Because you're in a unique spot. You're not just a delegate to the national convention. You're also a state representative.
Yes.
So talk about, I guess, what some of the constituencies are having problems with when it comes to economic issues.
I think the great Governor Stratton years ago said that good government is good politics, and that is something we have to focus on. Are we producing for the everyday people? And I think sometimes previous administrations have focused on businesses only, or the very rich, or hopefully that the trickle-down economics will come. We have to target things and help the everyday people. We got to make sure folks have enough money when they go to work. We got to make sure businesses are sustained. And I think the Democrats are talking about more than that. It's just that those things have advocacy groups that are talking. But if you go to any Democratic, agenda and focus, we're talking about economics. We don't want people taxed out of their businesses, because a lot of small businesses are LLCs, sole proprietorships, and they deal in their personal taxes. We don't want people overtaxed. We want people properly taxed. We don't want a lot of homelessness, right? Because they stand outside of businesses, right? We want people to have somewhere to go to be stabilized so they can participate in the economy. So I think we're saying the same things, but sometimes people try to take the little pieces there to create confusion. Many of the things on our platform is about businesses, stabilizing businesses, giving them what? Customers and sustaining customers. And if you don't have any money, it's going to be hard to support a local business.
So, again, just some of the conversation happening here at the Democratic National Convention in Chicago as we wrap up our weeks of coverage here, and we've got weeks to go before we head into the November general election. I'm Greg Bishop. It is Illinois in Focus Daily. Like, subscribe, hit that notification bell each and every weekday morning. So much more to unpack. We'll be back at it with you Monday morning, back live at the regular studio. So we'll obviously look at a lot of what we've covered and looking forward, what to expect over the next 70 days. Big day today. You've got Donald Trump holding a rally with a, quote, special guest, with the rumor circulating that the independent candidate, Robert Kennedy Jr., is going to drop out and endorse Donald Trump. Again, that's a rumor. We'll see if that is true today. So be obviously something we review tomorrow and talk more about what's going on here with Illinois in Focus Daily. All right, like, subscribe, hit that notification bell. We'll see you back here Monday morning, each and every weekday morning. America's Talking Network with the Center Square. I'm Greg Bishop. Have a great day, and we'll see you next week.